Hey, what's happening, you guys? Welcome back to the Let's Go Win podcast. You're here for a Tuesday tune up. And today we are going to be talking about the truth about grief. And this is going to be it's going to be an interesting podcast. And when I say interesting is because there's some sensitive subject matter in this podcast, and I'm talking about something extremely personal, specific to losing my dad. And I've told all my audience members, you guys know that I've lost my dad, but I haven't been 100% transparent with how that's happened. And my intent of doing so is to help others because that is my intent for Let's Go Win. That's why the company started, is to inspire people to live their best lives. It is the show exists and the company exists to help people be happy, healthy, and wealthy. And all of that is true. And I want people to show up as on this side, show up as you. And you know, being authentic, truly sharing, being vulnerable. It's the first chapter of my book, and Let's Go Win. And I haven't been 100% transparent with how it happened, why that's important, and the mission of Let's Go Win moving forward. Because March 6th, 2022, my life forever changed. My dad died, but it's because he actually killed himself. And I know that's a sensitive subject. And for those of you listening, if you've been affected by that personally, you know someone that's done it, someone within your family, I've realized how um, rampant this is in terms of families that are affected by this club that you never want to be a part of, that no one would ever sign up to be a part of. And so I had been asked to, kind of keep it to myself because my grandmother is still alive, my dad's mom. She's turned 100, which is incredible on I believe it's February 18th. And yet what I realize is it's selfish for me not to share because I'm watching people around me that have been affected. They have family members that have been affected, and I can help because I can share my story. I can share my experience, and hopefully they can see a light at the end of the tunnel and know that it's okay to not be okay, and that we can help others so that if they're feeling like there is no hope and they're struggling with mental illness, that it's okay. And it's interesting that when you have a broken arm, you go to the doctor and there's no judgment, no shame, no stigma around having a broken arm. It's broken. But when you have a broken head, or I wouldn't even call it broken, you have a mental illness or mental health challenge, there's a real stigma, and people are scared to talk about it. And I want to break that, man. I want to stop that cycle because I want to help as many human beings as humanly possible know that it's okay if you're not 100% upstairs. It's okay that you're depressed, that you're feeling anxious. And so this might be a hard one for me to get through just because, again, I'm talking about my best friend, or one of my best friends, certainly, and my dad. It's my hero that I looked up to. And it's just been tearing me up inside not to talk to more people about it. It's actually extremely therapeutic to say, this wonderful man is now gone. And could it have been avoided? I don't know. I would hope that, I would have been able to. I wasn't. But that he had a resource. So, um, there's so many stages of grief that you go through, and I've learned about them. Um, I've learned about them over the this past year, and they tell you there's the 5 stages of grief. And I'm really good at compartmentalizing. Thank you, Scott. Scott Raven just said thank you for the vulnerability. I appreciate that, brother. Um, I compartmentalize really well, and I did at first where I could talk about my dad and yet not really talk about the event, not talk about what happened. And yet I had so much anger, because we were openly discussed, this topic of suicide and how selfish it is. And we did so because, mental illness exists on both sides of my family, and we've seen it. And so I never knew that it was really a possibility, but if it was, I wanted open dialogue, not with him. I never knew that was even a possibility. Even once he was gone, I still don't believe it many days, because this was the strongest, kindest, most humble, gentle man that you've ever met. He was brilliant, and nothing has changed about that, by the way. My dad is still the strongest, kindest, most humble, gentle, bright man. And just because of a decision, or because of the way his life ended, that doesn't change anything. And I don't think it changes who he was. And so what I want to share with you is kind of what I went through, so you guys can understand that if you're going through grief, it's okay. And I give a lot of tools that I personally use, right? Like, I meditate every day, I talk about it. And yet there was, about a month, about a month and a half, where I would meditate, and I would stop because I would get interrupted by seeing him, of a vision of him, but I couldn't see his face. And it ruined this beautiful thing of meditation for me for like a month, because I just wanted to talk to him. I wanted to say, it's okay, dad. And we got it, and the family will be okay. And I don't understand. I'll probably never understand until I see you in heaven, or whenever we meet in the afterlife. I'll never understand how or why, because I don't understand the pain he obviously was going through. But I would use meditation as something that would help me, and yet it was getting interrupted. And I would see him, and there was finally this moment. I was sitting in, the sauna at my gym, and of all places, my dad, finally, I could see his face, and I'm just crying, and I'm literally uncontrollably in this sauna by myself. Thank goodness. And I'm not sure why I said thank goodness. Honestly, I cry now, and it's okay. But I saw his face, and I was able to tell him it's okay. And I had so much relief finally wash over me because of being able to reach him. Now, that was therapeutic for me, to see him, to talk to him. And the other thing that my wife did, and that we continue to do, is we write to my dad to tell him our feelings. And sometimes I share them, sometimes I don't, but it's a way to reach him, to say how mad I am at him, how much I miss him, how much I love him, how much I don't understand. And that's been extremely therapeutic in grief, to write a letter that has hopefully reaches him, but if nothing else, allows me to get some of this stuff out of my head and onto paper. Um, Journaling has been obviously another part. You guys know I like to write. I like to get my thoughts on paper and share that to the paper, so that it gets out of my head, because our minds are so wildly creative. They're also wildly destructive. And then ultimately speaking to people, I've found it to be both good and bad. And what I mean by that is, I was going to certain groups that, that club that I said you never want to be a part of, that survivor group. I didn't find a lot of solace. I didn't find a lot of peace going to that. And I'm not sure why, other than the journey and the path that I continued to find in those groups. I wasn't getting the same sort of resolution or peace that I was looking for. But I found that talking to others individually about what's happened, sharing it on stage, which I've done a couple times. I just haven't done it on air, um, because I was asked not to, and I respected that. But it was tearing me up inside. And so having this forum to reach out to you guys, to let you know what happened, it helps me out tremendously. And one of the things I also learned is it's not about stopping the emotion, but rather actually going through it. So, one of the people that I speak to and I look up to very highly, she says, "Don't stop feeling that emotion, that anger, that pain, that even if you want to break shit." Like I get to that point. She says, "Feel that because that's the only way to really uh, get through that grief is to actually feel that emotion." Because again, I told you I'm pretty good at compartmentalizing. What I would do is I just stuff it way down, and I'd be like, "Nah, I'm cool, everything's fine." Well, I wasn't, and ultimately, it would come out in other ways where maybe I was pulled away from others. Perhaps I wasn't showing up as the best version of me, the best husband, the best employer, the best uh, you know, father or whatever hat I was wearing. And so when I finally chose to go through that emotion, to feel the pain, to feel the anger and not stuff it down, it's been extremely helpful. And so it is something that I would definitely suggest to everyone as you're going through that. Don't be afraid to feel that pain, to feel that anger, to feel that frustration, that sadness, everything that goes along with it. Go through that because that is getting you closer to healing. Now, so we're clear, I'm not healed fully and I won't be for maybe the rest of my life. I don't know. I don't know because I can't predict the future. And I would say it comes in waves. That's the other thing that people that have gone through grief that it's of someone that's really close to you that you love, you don't understand the waves of grief that just hit you out of fucking nowhere, man. It's like you just get hit, and it's this wave of emotion that you can't understand. You don't know where it came from. You can't put your finger on what triggered that emotion, but it's there. And what I would say to you is give yourself grace. Share with the people around you that I'm not okay, but I'm working on it. I'm not okay. And that doesn't mean I can act like an asshole to you. And I'm sorry if I did. And my family members, Lisa, the kids certainly know what I'm talking about there, where, I haven't been my best version of me. And I don't like that, but I couldn't explain it either. Why am I feeling that way? And so I would tell yourself to give yourself grace in those moments of those waves of emotion coming through, that you're not always going to be at the best version of you. Um, and I think the last part of what I would say is forgiving yourself for what you're going through. And it's interesting. Why do I need to forgive myself? Well, because we are our harshest critics. And for those of us that have learned to have this facade to look a certain way and go about life, people expect, and I'm a mindset coach, that I'm happy and it's always great. And I do. I try to live that way. But there are days that I'm not my best version of me, and to forgive myself, to say that's okay. Let's get back on the horse and let's truly go through the emotions, go through the various tools that I have accessible to me, which is again meditation, journaling, talking to others. Go through that and say to yourself, it's okay that you're not showing up as the best version of you, because you can't always be expected of it. So I guess this is really a story of just overcoming losing someone that you love, whether that be a death, whether that be a divorce, whether that be as a business partner. I mean, there's all sorts of grief, but the truth of grief is it's not pretty. There's no one size fits all. um it's extremely raw, and be kind to yourself and just know that whatever you're going through, it's okay. Find the tools that work for you. Reach out to someone if that helps. Don't reach out if that's not your thing. Go for a walk. Like, I think that's the biggest lesson I've learned in this past year is when I'm not okay, to be okay with that, to give myself the grace and say, you know what? You are forgiven for not showing up as the best version of you. And so I wanted to share it. I didn't know how to do this show appropriately because I'm talking about my hero, my dad and someone that I love more than anything, and I miss him every day. Now I'm getting emotional, of course, because I'm starting to see his face and thinking about it. But I miss him, and I know other people go through this pain and this anguish, and they don't have the tools. So my message to you is, you have tools available to you. It's okay not to be okay. And the truth about grief is it's ugly at times, and it's beautiful at times as well. The one positive I will say throughout this entirety of losing my dad, the one most positive, and I have said it on the show, but I have a level of perspective today that I wouldn't have had without losing him. And I wish that wasn't the case, right? I would give it back in a heartbeat to have him back. But my perspective on loving life, living in the moment, every moment is a gift, even when it's shitty, right? Even in those really hard moments, it's an absolute gift. I didn't have that level of perspective. I said I did, but I feel it differently after losing my dad. So, in grief, you're going to find some gifts, and recognize those too, because that's going to help you remember them the way they ought to be remembered, which is, like I said, a kind, amazing, gentle, smart, absolute amazing human being. And I miss him. I love you, Dad. But I wanted to share the truth about grief with you guys. So share this with anybody that's dealt with that grief, that this could help them, because again, I just want it to help others go through these processes, because it's not easy, and it will continue to happen in our world if we don't start to talk about it. And so Let's Go In is committed to helping people with mental illness, with just not feeling their best selves. That's why we put this content out, is so that you can gain from it and have some solutions. So I appreciate you guys. I love you all. I really do. This gives me so much joy to share, even when it's hard. Even like today, I was excited and nervous, which I've never felt nervous on a podcast, because I'm truly showing you guys inside what's really happened, and what that last year has been like. And I just want you to know there's a lot of good out there, and even in the ugly times, there's some good to see. So anyway, continue to be happy, healthy, and wealthy. I appreciate you all. Share this out, and we'll talk to you very soon. Thank you so much for listening. If this content is delivering value to you, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. That helps us build this community, and that is what we are all about. Building this community as big as we can, helping as many people as we can, and deliver as much value as possible. Be sure to head over to letsgowinpodcast.com for information on my coaching courses, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Let's Go Win 365. Let's go win and transcend in life.
This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson.